Before we step into one of history's strangest disappearances, subscribe to the channel, because some mysteries deserve to be remembered. In December 1900, 3 experienced lighthouse keepers vanished without a trace from Eilean Moor, one of the most remote islands in Scotland's Outer Hebrides. Their disappearance would become one of the greatest unsolved maritime mysteries of all time. This is their story. The Flannan Isles, also known as the Seven Hunters, lie 20 miles west of the Isle of Lewis. These windswept islands were considered cursed by locals, who believed they were inhabited by spirits. Despite superstitions, the Northern Lighthouse Board constructed a lighthouse on Eilean Moor, the largest island, completing it in December 1899. 3 men were assigned to staff the lighthouse. James Ducat, the principal keeper, age 43, with over 20 years of experience. Thomas Marshall, the second assistant, aged 40, a seasoned keeper with an exemplary record. And Donald MacArthur, wait, I need to correct that. William MacArthur, known as the occasional keeper, who was actually replaced before this rotation by Donald MacArthur, age 40. The duty keeper that December was actually Joseph Moore, who would make the terrible discovery. Lighthouse keeping was demanding, isolated work. The keepers worked in rotation, 2 men always on duty while a third remained ashore. They maintained the light, recorded weather observations, and kept meticulous logs. On December 7, 1900, the relief vessel Hesperus attempted to reach Eilean Moor, but was forced back by severe storms. The keepers were left alone with provisions for several more weeks. On December 15, 1900, the steamship Archdor passed the Flannan Isles and noted something disturbing. The lighthouse was dark. Captain Holman reported this to the authorities upon reaching port. However, it wasn't until December 26th, Boxing Day, that relief keeper Joseph Moore finally reached the island aboard the Hesperus. As they approached, the crew fired a flare and sounded the ship's horn. There was no response. No flag was raised. No keeper appeared on the landing platform. An eerie silence hung over the island. Joseph Moore was rowed to the landing. He climbed the steep steps alone, calling out to his colleagues. No answer came. The entrance gate was closed. The main door was unlocked. Moore entered, and what he found would haunt him forever. The kitchen was in disarray. A chair was overturned. The clock had stopped. Most chillingly, 2 of the 3 oilskin coats were missing from their hooks, but 1 remained. Why would 2 men venture into a storm without one of them taking his protective coat? Moore searched every room. The beds were unmade. The fire was out and cold. The lamp in the lighthouse tower was cleaned and ready, but unlit. Most disturbing of all, there was no sign of the 3 men. Not in the lighthouse. Not in the outbuildings. Not anywhere on the small island. Moore rushed back to the landing, frantically waving to the Hesperus. He shouted across the water, "The lighthouse is deserted. The keepers are gone." A search party was immediately formed. Captain Harvey, the Hesperus's master, and several crew members scoured the island. They discovered evidence of an enormous storm. At the west landing, over 100 feet above sea level, iron railings were bent, a toolbox had been washed away, and ropes were scattered. A large rock weighing over a ton had been displaced. The damage was catastrophic, suggesting waves of unprecedented height had struck the island. But this landing was used only in calm weather. Why had anyone been there during a storm? Then came the most troubling discovery, the lighthouse log. The last entries, written by Thomas Marshall, were deeply disturbing. December 12th, severe winds the likes of which I have never seen before in 20 years. Ducat irritable. December 13th, storm still raging, wind steady. Stormbound, cannot go out. Ship passing, sounding foghorn. Could see lights of cabins. Ducat quiet. MacArthur crying. December 14th, never seen such a storm. Everything shipshape. Ducat still quiet. MacArthur praying. The final entry, December 15th at 9 a.m. Storm ended, sea calm. God is over all. The disappearance made headlines across Britain. The Northern Lighthouse Board launched an immediate investigation. Robert Muirhead, the superintendent, personally examined the evidence. The official inquiry revealed several facts. The last recorded sighting of the light was on December 15th. The Arctur's captain had noted its absence that same evening. The clock had stopped at some point after the final log entry. 2 oilskins were gone, but 1 remained, suggesting at least 1 man had rushed out without protective clothing. The official investigation concluded that the most likely scenario was this. On December 15th, after the storm had passed, Ducat and Marshall went to the west landing to assess and repair storm damage. While there, a rogue wave, perhaps the aftermath of the storm, struck without warning. MacArthur, seeing his colleagues in danger from the lighthouse or from higher ground, rushed to help them without taking time to grab his oilskin. The wave swept all 3 men into the violent Atlantic Ocean. None survived, but could this explain everything? Weather records show that while storms did strike between December 12th to 14th, December 15th was recorded as calm at nearby locations. However, the sea can remain treacherous long after winds subside. Rogue waves, massive swells that appear without warning, were known to mariners but poorly understood in 1900. The West Landing's damage proved that extraordinary wave action had occurred. The Atlantic Ocean is particularly prone to such phenomena. Yet questions remain. Why do Marshall's log entries describe a multi-day storm when weather records suggest only rough conditions on December 12th? Some researchers note that Marshall described Ducat as irritable and quiet, and MacArthur as crying and praying. Highly unusual behavior for experienced keepers. Was Marshall's mental state deteriorating? Was he recording actual events or descending into some form of psychological crisis? The entries are uncharacteristically emotional for official lighthouse logs. Local legend offers darker explanations. The Flannan Isles were sacred to the ancient Celts. Hebridean shepherds would not graze sheep there, believing the islands belonged to the little people, supernatural beings who resented human presence. One legend told of a mysterious sea bird that haunted the islands, capable of summoning deadly storms. Some locals whispered that the keepers had disturbed something ancient, something that demanded retribution. Of course, these are superstitions, not evidence, but they reveal how the community understood these cursed islands. In the absence of bodies or concrete answers, wild theories emerged. Some suggested a sea serpent. Others proposed that a foreign vessel had abducted or murdered the keepers, though no motive existed. The era's fascination with spiritualism led some to claim supernatural forces were responsible. A few even suggested the men had stolen supplies and fled to start new lives. Though this ignored their reputations, their families, and a lack of any means of escape from the island. None of these theories withstand scrutiny. Modern analysis has focused on the rogue wave theory. Oceanographers now know that rogue waves can exceed 80 feet and appear without warning, even in relatively calm seas. They're caused by the constructive interference of smaller waves, creating a massive wall of water. The Flannan Isles' exposed position makes them particularly vulnerable. The damaged West Landing, the missing oilskins, and the calm weather record can all be reconciled if a rogue wave struck on December 15th while the keepers were working outside. This remains the most scientifically credible explanation. Yet doubt lingers. Why was the chair overturned inside? Why had the clock stopped? If the final log entry was at 9 a.m. on December 15th, and the men were swept away that same day, why do the beds appear unmade as though no one had slept the night of December 14th? Small inconsistencies that may mean nothing or everything. In the absence of bodies, the ocean keeps its secrets. We can reconstruct what probably happened, but we cannot know with certainty. James Ducat left behind a wife and 4 children. Thomas Marshall had a wife and family. Donald MacArthur's loved ones never received closure. Their bodies were never recovered. The sea that had been their workplace became their grave. A memorial service was held, but there were no remains to bury. The families received pensions from a Northern Lighthouse Board, small compensation for their devastating loss. The lighthouse continued to operate, but it was automated in 1971. No keeper has been permanently stationed there since. Today, the Flannan Isles Lighthouse still stands, automated and remote. Maintenance crews visit occasionally, but the island remains largely untouched, swept by Atlantic winds. The mystery endures because it touches something primal, our fear of the sea's power, the fragility of human life against nature's fury, and the terrible question, what happened in those final moments? Three experienced men, who knew the sea's dangers intimately, vanished as completely as if they had never existed. The lighthouse still warns ships away from the rocks, but it cannot answer the question that has haunted maritime history for over a century. What really happened to the lighthouse keepers of Eilean Mor? Some mysteries are never solved, some disappearances never explained, and some islands keep their secrets forever. Some mysteries are never meant to be solved. If stories like this keep you watching, subscribe now, because the next mystery might be even darker.